Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. You are watching the Paris Fintech Forum Communities video interview series. I'm Elliott Gotkine, and today I'm joined by ACCEL partner Philippe Botteri. Great to have you with us, Philippe.
Hi, Elliott. Great to be here with you today.
Okay, so without further ado, let's learn a little bit more about ACCEL. Okay, so I think most people, Philippe, most people watching will know ACCEL as a very successful VC firm. So what else should we know? Maybe perhaps give us a sense of the scale of ACCEL.
Sure. So let me tell you how the firm is organized. So as you know, we started more than 35 years ago in Silicon Valley. So this is where the firm has its roots and culture. Starting from the early stage, and then over time. We grew into a stage agnostic firm over 3 continents, so we're very active, of course, in North America, but also in Europe, Israel, and India and Southeast Asia. So the way the firm is structured is we have 3 different early stage funds, which are around 650 $700 million. So we have one from North America, one from Europe and Israel, one for India and Southeast Asia. And then on top of that, we have 2 global funds. The first one is a growth fund, which is a $1.75 billion vehicle, which typically will make investments after the early stage funds. So that would start at around 40 million up to 80 million. And then we have what we call a leaders vehicle, which is $2.25 billion, and which invests in companies that are more mature. So we call it leaders when it means that companies have asserted their leadership. So typically we'll think about companies that are north of 40-50 million in revenues, and we can invest check anywhere from 50 to 150 $1 million. And so these 2 funds are global, and so we have teams in each of the region investing these funds as well.
And tell us about some of the fintechs that you've invested in and why.
Sure. So we've been super active in fintechs for the past 20 plus years. And so some of our recent investments, especially in Europe, includes companies like Trade Republic in Germany, which is kind of the Robin Hood of Europe. So they do anything around trading, and they also launch crypto, etc. So it's really giving individual investors access to the same product and facilities as you would have if you were with a private bank. So it's just the simplicity of with taking your phone and be able to buy Bitcoin, back the Apple stock or sell it or whatever, which is and we're seeing like in this new millennial generation, I think a real change in terms of how to think about savings, and we're seeing people, this young generation is a lot more interested in having access to I think different financial product and not just leave the money on a savings account. So that's one area on the consumer side that's been working very well. I think we're more broadly, I think if we're thinking about our investment thesis on the consumer side, it's all about disrupting banks and giving consumer access to products that that didn't have access to in the past, or at least make it super easy and a lot more cost efficient. So another example is Lydia, company started in France, which is basically making it super easy for any individual to manage their their money and give money and send money to friends, etc., with a simple mobile app. So that has been a big investment thesis for us on the consumer side. I think the other area where we're seeing a lot of disruption right now has been the B2B side, right? I mean, in the past, a lot of the the fintech investment have been really focused on consumer, and now we're starting to see the innovation coming to the B2B side. One example of that is a company called Melio, which is a company out of Israel. And basically what the company is doing is they make payments very easy, but for businesses. So if you think about Lydia is all about making payments easy for consumer. And they're doing the same for for very small businesses targeting the North American market. So if you go, if you use Melio, very easy for you to send a payment to to pay your bill to your supplier. And as you know, on B2B, there's still a lot, especially in the US. I mean, 50% of the payment is still done with paper checks, right? So you see your bill, you take out your checkbook, you write a check, you send it by the mail. It arrives 3, 4, 5 days later, and that's kind of how the economy works. And so what Melio does is say, well, instead of doing this, why don't you use Melio? And then you can use any mean of payment. So you can, if you want, you can pay by credit card, by debit card, or by an ACH, which is just a bank account transfer. You send the money to Melio, and then Melio will pay your provider, and they can pay the provider the way you want. So it can be an ACH, or it can be through a paper check, and Melio will send them the check, but they can send it with extra fast, so the payment is sent the next day, etc. So obviously the idea is to get rid of paper, but there are still suppliers which do require payment by check. So that's so they make it like super easy and super flexible, and the take-up rate has been really really incredible. So that's another.
I like the idea.
Yeah.
I like the idea of a fintech having to write checks out, but no doubt there's some kind of automated process. I actually know one of the founders, and also I think one of your co-investors. I think Aleph is one of the VCs here in Israel that's invested in them. But look, I need to move on to kind of get to know a little bit more about some other stuff with you, Philippe. So we've heard about ACCEL now. So let's now get to know Philippe a little bit better. So you're based in London. Evidently, you weren't one of the Frenchmen in finance who went back home after Brexit. Do you feel more like a Brit now? Do you feel like feel at home?
Well, I think my career has always been very international. So I started right after school with with McKinsey in the Paris office. But I work mostly for European clients. So I spent a lot of time abroad, and then I've always been passionate about technology, and so 2 years into my tenure at McKinsey, I asked for a transfer to the Silicon Valley office of McKinsey, which was ended up being in 2000, which wasn't the greatest time to transfer, so it took a bit of time. But finally, in 2003, I managed to transfer, to Silicon Valley. I stayed a bit less than 10 years there. After McKinsey, I joined another firm called Bessemer, so stayed 6 years, a bit less than 6 years with them, and that's kind of where I learned the venture trade, and then got the call from ACCEL. At that time, I just had completed a year ago an investment in a company called Criteo, which is a French company which ended up doing quite well, being listed, and it's kind of opened my eyes about what was happening in Europe at the time. And I said there's some great entrepreneurial, great things happening, but not many people are looking at these opportunities. And then I got the call from ACCEL. It was a global platform, which is something which was like super important for me, because the entrepreneur who have the ambition to build global businesses, they usually want to work with global VC who can help them globally. So ACCEL was a great platform for that. I loved the partners that I met there, and it was a great team to be a part of. And as I said, the market opportunity was quite interesting. So that's kind of why in 2011 decided to move back to the UK. And the world has really changed from a tech perspective compared to where it was. But I think the bet really paid off, and we can say that now Europe has really come of age. And so I'm based in London, but the reality is like most of my investment are we cover all of Europe and Israel. So for me, I think we're in London because that's our historical base, and people live here and they have kids, and so we're not going to go anywhere. But all our investments are the past in the past couple of years we've invested in companies that are in probably 25 or 30 different cities, and so it's a lot of travel.
Right, and I want to ask you about those investments because ACCEL has invested early in some of the world's biggest technology companies, I think including Facebook, Flipkart, and others that don't begin with an F necessarily. What's been the best investment that you pushed ACCEL to make, or were like really championing? What's been your best investment today?
Well, I mean, it's like asking, a father or mother, which one of your kids do you do you prefer? I think, yeah, I think it's hard to give an answer. I've had the chance to invest in, several businesses that have been quite successful, ranging from, DocuSign, UiPath, Chainalysis, and Algolia in France, and BlaBlaCar. And so, each of these businesses have done very well. And for me, I felt privileged to have been part of this journey. And I wouldn't say that, one is better than the other. I would say they've just been, all incredibly rewarding. It's been super fun to work with these great founding teams.
Very diplomatic answer. You were never tempted to found your own startup, having seen all of these people with their ideas and creating their businesses, which go on to kind of do amazing things. You were never thought to yourself, maybe I could do that.
Well, I think the way I think about entrepreneurship is doing what I love to do, which is investing in great companies and building a great firm. And so for me, I don't need to go outside to create another company. I'm actually, contributing to the growth of ACCEL and what we do in Europe, and that's how I see my entrepreneurship. But no, I have no plan to leave ACCEL and start something totally different. I think investing is what I like, and ACCEL is my home.
Right. I guess why found one startup when you're helping effectively found or create or grow so many others at the same time. So look, Philippe, a key part of this interview is to get your take on the future of finance. But first, we are going to take a very quick break, after which we're going to continue our conversation with ACCEL partner Philippe Botteri. Welcome back, and don't forget, if you're not already a full member of our community, everything you need to join can be found at www.parisfintechforum.com. Okay, and now Philippe, let's talk a bit about the future of finance. I think in 2021, global fintech funding mushroomed, hitting $132 billion, which was more than double 2020's figure. Will 2022 be another record year, a pause for breath, or the start of a decline?
Well, I think that's a very good question, and there are many factors. I think I would say that the level of innovation that we're seeing in fintech is not slowing down. So I would expect that level of innovation to continue. As I said at the beginning, we're seeing really some secular shifts that are happening right now on the consumer side with the transition from kind of banking services to next generation fintech, making a lot of things cheaper and more accessible to consumer, and that's going to continue. I think on the B2B side, there is really a need for a refresh of all the services, and basically giving businesses the same tool that the consumer can have access to now with, as I mentioned, company like, Lydia, for example. And then there is the third part, which is kind of the tech stack is also changing, right? And there is a lot more that automation and compliance, etc., that you can build in your payment systems. So you can help fintech companies provide better services to their consumer or serve them in a more efficient way, and then enable businesses who are not financial services businesses, but who can tomorrow will be able to offer these financial services to this consumer. So net, I think the trends are there. They're not going to go away, and they're going to continue to accelerate. Now, of course, all this have to be mitigated with what's happening on the macro environment, which includes, correction of the public market. So now the valuation have been reset on the public side. We need to see what does this mean for the private side, right? But that's probably mean that some companies will have to take longer to be able to grow their valuation, and so that may slow down a bit the pace of investment. But I think more importantly, everything's happening and has been happening now, for a few weeks, in Ukraine, and how that going to impact the world, and how that's going to be reflecting investment. I mean, I think it's for everyone to to guess. But I would say, if we look at the micro side, I think the trends are very strong. I think on the macro, there's a lot more uncertainty right now.
Right, and does that uncertainty that you mentioned, of course, we've got rising inflation, rising interest rates. We saw Russia invade Ukraine towards the end of February as well. Do all of these things make you more cautious about writing checks, or keen to write perhaps smaller checks? Are you pausing anything? How is this practically affecting you right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll leave Ukraine aside, because I think, yes, if there is an escalation of the war, I think all bets are off there. But I would say, from an economic standpoint, inflation, the rise of inflation is what's really impacted the public market, and so that has driven a reset of the valuation. I think so far what we're seeing is that on the early stage side, we've not seen right now an impact of this. I think on the late stage side, for the I think the top tier companies are still seeing a lot of momentum. But kind of say the one that not growing as fast, etc., then I think are giving a bit of a pause to some investors so that they can grow into their their valuation. I think what's going to be also quite interesting to see is, because we haven't talked about it yet, is what's going to happen on the crypto world, right? I think, and on the crypto side, there's always two different areas. There is the Web3 and DeFi, which is really at its very early stages, and we're going to continue to see a lot of very interesting innovation in this area. And then there is a maturation of more of the more traditional Bitcoin crypto ecosystem, where we're now starting to see adoption from the large financial services institution, private banks offering this this product to their consumer. And if anything, all the instability that you're talking about right now, I think is going to continue to push the crypto trend upward. So I would expect an acceleration on this front. And one of the company I'm involved with that I mentioned, Chainalysis, which has crypto forensics and crypto compliance, and yeah, we're clearly seeing the momentum really continues for them. So we haven't seen anything slowing them down right now.
Well, I did have a question about Web3 and DeFi, of course, getting people very excited over the last year or so, especially when you throw in things like non-fungible tokens or NFTs. Is this an area that you are actively pursuing investment in right now? You're really confident that this is going to kind of be the next big thing?
Well, I mean, there's we're seeing a lot of things that have been very very active. I think globally as a firm probably have made say 8 to 10 investments already in this area. So definitely an area that we're a big believer in. I think the main question there is going to be, how long is it going to take for of the kind of this decentralized way of looking at the world for it to really take off among kind of a broader consumer base. But we're already seeing some quite interesting applications, especially on on the gaming side, for example, we see this company like So Rare, which we had the chance to invest in, or ACCEL, another one from Asia, which has been performing super well. So we're starting to see some area where kind of decentralization can really create some very interesting businesses. And now I think the question is, once you go outside of gaming and collectibles, like how is that gonna go down? I mean, another example which was super interesting was kind of this smart contracts to bid on the Constitution of the United States. So we're starting to see some elements of that, and hopefully there will be more of this to come in the next 2 to 3 years.
Right. I think I read somewhere that for people to kind of, when the collective didn't win, I think it went to Ken Griffin from of Citadel fame, when people didn't win, when the crypto collective didn't win that, then it was actually going to cost people more to get their money back than they actually put in some circumstances. So it was kind of a very interesting experiment.
Because I have a friend who invested, and he actually made money on this, even though because basically what happened is, you put the money in, then the issue with the smart contract is everything is transparent, right? So you're collecting as much money as you can, but then everyone knows how much money you have, and the next bidder just have to offer $1 more to win the bid if he wants to pay that price, right? And in this case, he wanted to. So then basically it's like, okay, we need to bring the money back, but they got the money back, but they also got a token. A certain amount of tokens going with that, which is a token of people, who have participated in this auction. And actually the value, these tokens do have value today, and kind of that value made money for people who participated in the contract, even though they lost the bid.
Okay, well, I stand corrected. But look, despite big gains on public markets that we saw last year, some of the juiciest returns are still in privately held companies of the sort that ACCEL invests in. Should more retail investors have the opportunity to get in early? Because often, companies go public, and sometimes if, their valuations then fall, and because retail investors can't get in on right at the start of the IPO, and then they're kind of left holding the baby with, valuations declining. Should retail investors have more access to the kind of deals that ACCEL invest in?
Well, I think that is a very broad, question. I think when you're looking at all the jobs that are being created by the tech industry and all the startups, you can say that all these people have equity in their company. So I think that is a first way that consumer can have access to the equity of of startups, and they can that means obviously working for the company, but it's still an interesting way. I think you've seen the emergence of secondary marketplaces where some of these shares are traded, and so if you have friends who are leaving a company and want to sell some of their options, etc., you can you have the option to buy it from them. So there is a bit of this happening. But overall, I think you have to talk to the regulator and see how much they want to give access to to this very risky type of investments, right? I think this goes beyond the technicality of the financial structure to give access. I think for me there is a more fundamental question about what does the regulator want to do. And as we have seen in the past few weeks, this valuation can be very volatile. They're volatile in the the public markets where you have a day-to-day mark-to-market, but on the private side you don't have a day-to-day mark-to-market, but it doesn't mean that the valuation of these companies cannot be as volatile, right? So that's also something to really take into account when you're thinking about potentially expanding it to a broad set of investors.
Okay, so look, it's time now for our rapid fire questions for this round. Are you ready, Philippe?
I'm ready.
Okay, so just one or two word answers are totally fine because we need to rattle through all of these. So most successful fintechs, or many successful fintechs, are very well funded but are still losing money hand over fist. Is that fine for now because they're eventually going to grow and make lots of money, or is this something we should worry about?
I think we're. I think if you take a 10-year period, I think you're or long term, like five, not to maybe 10, but like next 5 years, I think we're good.
Okay. What fintech segment has the biggest potential over the next 5 years?
I would say B2B payments.
What is the biggest pain point in your everyday financial life that you'd like to see resolved?
Okay, I'm gonna have an interesting answer here. I would say.
It has to be quick, yeah. Philippe, because otherwise we're not going to get through the other questions.
Has compliance gone overboard?
Okay. Do you think we're at the beginning, middle, or end of the fintech wave?
I think we are at the beginning.
Do you have a metaverse strategy?
Yes.
Do you think EU and US regulations today have adapted enough to handle the new possibilities and behaviors that we're seeing in the financial industry?
I think there is more to be done here, especially on the crypto side.
Okay. How would you describe NFTs? A scam, B, an interesting concept, or C, part of our future that we cannot afford to miss out on?
I think it is definitely part of our future. And it will take so many.
Have you ever invested in... Sorry, have you ever invested in crypto? I think we know the answer to that one.
The answer is yes.
Are physical points of sales part of the future of finance?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. And on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the lowest, 10 the highest, how would you rate the chances that in the next 10 years, one of the neobanks will be as profitable as a top-tier legacy bank?
8.
Out of 10? 8, okay. CBDCs become a mainstream reality in the US or EU?
Sorry, I missed that.
CBDC, central bank digital currencies, will become a mainstream reality in the US or EU?
Yes.
So that's like a 9.
Oh, sorry, 10? This one is also. I would say this.
These are all out of 10.
I think this one is let's say.
Just out of 10,
9.
Philippe. What would you say? 9. Okay, you'll be able to open a crypto account at a top tier bank.
10.
Swift will still be the main tool for transferring money around the world.
6.
A new card or non-card rival will emerge to challenge Visa, Mastercard, Amex and the like.
6.
And that we'll see a top tier bank or insurer bought by a fintech.
2.
Okay, great. So look, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. So really just want to thank you, Axel partner Philippe Botteri, for joining me today.
Thank you, Elliott. It was my pleasure to be here.
Great. So look, for those of you watching, we'll be back again next week with another big name from the world of finance and technology. We do hope you can join us then. In the meantime, don't forget to subscribe to the Paris Fintech Forum YouTube channel and to follow us on Twitter at Paris Fin Forum. That's it for now. See you next time. Bye-bye.